So here we are next to our greenhouses in our outdoor plant production area. This is where a lot of our seed from the production field comes over here. We're grown mostly into 6-packs of native plants. The seed that we're not using for our plants is cleaned and stored for going into seed mixes.
When do you start the seeds that you use to grow the plants in the greenhouse?
It's kind of fun up here. We actually fire up the greenhouses in about January of the year, so when everything else is under a blanket of snow and pretty chilly, we're just getting the greenhouses warmed up and thinking about waking up some of the native plants for the growing season.
I've heard that sometimes you have to treat the native seeds a little different. What is that called?
So first, as part of our seed cleaning process, we clean down the seed really well. We remove a lot of the chaff and the hulls and things like that. And then after that, each individual species has kind of a log of what it requires. But some seeds are scarified or stratified for varying periods of time and then grown into the plant production.
What do those two terms mean that you just said, stratification and scarification?
Scarification is sort of like scratching or cracking of the outer seed, where stratification is sort of a cool, moist combination to promote germination. One thing you can do at home to kind of mimic stratification naturally is to seed native wildflower mixes in the fall time so that they kind of go through this cold, freezing, thawing cycle naturally with the kind of at the soil and snow surface. Kind of as the insulated snow melts and pushes the seed into the soil surface, it freezes and thaws, and it mimics you know, the stratifications that we might be doing in the greenhouse right there at your own project area.
You mentioned that you label your seed too. Why is that so important?
With native plants and seed, it's really important to consider where it's coming from, what the local origin is. So you want to use seeds that are local to your area, or you know, within a certain proximity to your area, so that you know it's going to thrive there. It's something that has existed there historically, and it's something that is really adapted to your individual unique growing conditions.
When the seed is planted here, is that done by a machine or by hand?
Different species are different, so some can be sort of done by machine, and some are pressed in by hand by some of our great greenhouse crew.
Do you grow in different size containers depending on the variety?
We do grow in some different size containers. You know, we know that certain species don't prefer the smaller packaging, and some do really well in our traditional growing size of 6-packs.
When you transplant, I assume you would plant them into a flat of some kind, and then they get transplanted, is that correct?
Some of our species we direct seed right into our 6-packs, and some we start in tiny cells and then we upsize them into the next size, and then maybe even to another size from there.
How do you upsize them?
By hand.
So it's all hand transplant and hand done?
Oh, yep, for the most part.
When do you move the plants from the greenhouse out into this beautiful production area?
Certain species will stay in the greenhouse sort of until they're ready to ship in the mail, or until they're ready to go out onto projects, and some will get moved outside depending on its preference for growing conditions.
And then how do you maintain the plants out here?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot that goes into maintaining the plants when they're in their 6-packs and plant cells. They still get weeds and they still need to be weeded, and it's done by hand and very carefully and meticulously before they go out onto projects or get shipped out to our customers.
Do you ever have to worry about deer or rabbits coming in and eating your plants?
So luckily here we have a lot of food options to go around, so we don't see a lot of browsing by deer or rabbits. And in general, they don't love native plants. They will browse, and especially if they're hungry. You know, nothing is too deer resistant if they're hungry enough, but they don't always like native plants. They're a little bit hairy, the stems are a little bit tough, so they don't, in general, tend to be their favorites. In the greenhouse production, our most common damage is done by caterpillars and things like that, but we leave them in place to to feast on the leaves of the plants. And I think our customers know if they come with some holes in the leaves that they were giving maybe a monarch caterpillar a good home for a while. So it's the least we could do.
So when you have a project then, how do you decide which plants to grab and use for those projects?
It's really fun to kind of see what's growing this year and decide what might look nice on an individual project, whether it's a rain garden or a very dry roadside prairie planting, to kind of scroll through the inventory, see what might be just the right fit for a project, and get it out there and get it planted. You know, in planning a native planting project, it's important to consider the flowers, which everybody loves, but also some habitat plants as well. You know, our native grasses and sedges, and those can be incorporated into any type of native planting. So whether it's adding natives to an existing perennial garden bed, or maybe along a shoreline, or in a pollinator planting, kind of a combination of different plants is really important.
How many different species do you grow?
We grow a couple hundred different species between our flowers and grasses and sedges.
How do you decide how much to grow each year?
You know, we really enjoy growing unique species, ones that are kind of hard to find. And we also, we have our favorites too, and things that are kind of the favorite of local gardeners as well.
What are some of the plants that people love the most?
One of the plants that people seem to love the most is the meadow blazing star, the production field that we saw earlier. That is a favorite of gardeners and a favorite of the monarch butterfly. Butterfly milkweed is another very popular plant. It's unique, beautiful orange color and shorter growing height makes it a popular choice in gardens. We love the different kinds of sunflowers, and some of the shorter height grasses like prairie dropseed and little blue stem are very popular as well.